Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of NB Bassin. I am your host, Donald Patterson. Excuse me, here I am coughing already, and I'm just getting started. I want to thank everyone for joining us again today, and hopefully you've enjoyed the episodes that we've put out up until now. Once again, I'm doing something a little different today. We had some technical difficulties last night when I was going to record, and I ended up not working this morning, so instead of hearing my truck in the background, whining in the background, you might hear my dog get running around or being a little annoying, but hey, that's what pets do. A couple things to talk about today. We're all getting the itch, or those of us that live in cold weather climates that haven't been able to be out on the water all year, or all winter, I should say. I know I am personally definitely getting the itch. I really want to get out on the water, want to get my boat out of the garage. Today's only March 1st. It's probably a little early yet. Now, those of you who may bank fish or kayak fish, bank fishing's probably still a little tricky. There's always some shore ice built up. But I do know I have one friend who kayak fishes, and he was lucky enough to get out the other day and make the rest of us jealous by getting out and actually hooking into some sturgeon. So the options are there, and it doesn't matter what kind of fishing you do. We're all getting the itch. But that being said, we have to look at what season we have ahead of us. Spring, whole different set of challenges. You know, we came out of our fall fishing season, and I don't know, personally, fall is one of my favorite times of year. And we got to change our habits. We've got to change our way of thinking. And you're looking at the water, especially if you're in rivers, areas with heavy current, tidal action. It all comes into play. You need to find where those fish are sitting. You know, they've been laying dormant most of the winter, minimal activity for them under the ice. So where are they now? I wish I could draw you a map. Because if I could draw you a map, then that means I could get myself to that spot every time. But it's definitely a challenge, because every spring is different. The water levels are different. How much snow did you have? How much runoff is there? How heavy have the rains been in the spring? How high is the water? Is it lower than normal? It's all, you know, how fast is the water temperature rising? You know, it's definitely something different. Challenging, yes, but no less enjoyable. And when you do have a successful day in the spring, it's that much more rewarding, because you know it was challenging, and you still were able to get out there and get the job done. What should you look for? Especially in rivers, or like I said, areas with high current, those smallmouth, like I said, they've been laying dormant all winter. They're not going to want to be out in heavy current, fighting heavy water all spring. So they're going to be looking, even more so than normal, they're going to be looking for current breaks, banks, rock outcroppings. Anywhere they can get into, especially when the water's high, the freshet is at its peak, they're going to want to be sheltered, protected. So they're going to relate to cover even more so than normal. How do I put this? Anyone who's fished largemouth and smallmouth, you'll recognize the differences between the two. If you've only fished smallmouth, you may not recognize the difference quite as quickly. With both types of bass, we talk about cover. Well, the largemouth, they like getting in cover, which is why you can get up on your pads and get into the heavy grass and the slop, and they'll be laying right in the middle of it. Well, smallmouth, they don't like being in the cover as much as they do. They relate to the cover. They'll sit beside it. You know, they'll use the grass or the rocks as shelter without getting right in deep. So in the spring of the year, look for those rock outcroppings. Little, points and things of that nature that are going to create a current break. That's your first thing to look for. Next, if you can find rocks and points and any sort of current break with clear water coming in to that dirtier, muddied up river water, where a creek or a stream runs in, that's going to be a great spot to look. They're going to be around those areas. Look for that clean water coming in, because you'll see a very obvious band where you have your muddy river water pushing downstream, and then all of a sudden here's this nice pocket of nice, clean, clear water. Great spot to throw. Great spot to throw. They're not going to want to be out in that muddy slop all the time. Look for that clean water. That clean water and current breaks. Those are your keys. And then after that, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. Some days, they're going to be feeding heavy. And you'll go out and they will bite everything you throw at them. And then there's other days, I swear, you could bounce a jig off their head and they're still not going to strike at it. So that's where the patience comes in, and the time. Because if they're not biting here, you're going to have to go looking somewhere else. And don't let your electronics mess with your head. Because we've all had days where the screens on our finders are lit up. There's just fish everywhere, and nothing's biting. Don't let your electronics do your fishing for you. They're a great tool. They're an asset. But they can also be your worst enemy. Because you will sit on a spot, say, look at the screen, look at how many fish are here. But you won't move, even though they're not biting. You see all those streaks and all those lines, and you know there's fish there. And for some reason, you can't stop yourself. You stay there, and you stay, and you keep casting and casting and casting into a pool of fish that won't bite. Well, if you're fun fishing, and that's how you want to spend your day, there's no harm in it. All kinds of casting practice. And eventually that spot will probably turn on. But if you're in a tournament, it all comes down to time management. You can't sit on that hole all day. You can maybe come back and try it again later, but to sit there all day not knowing when it's going to turn on, and I don't care if you fish that hole 100 times, and you say, oh, well, it turns on every day in such and such a time. Yeah, if you want to roll the dice, if you're that confident in your experience with that location, go for it. But if you don't have that kind of experience on a spot, it's an awful gamble. It's an awful gamble to sit that long and not have a clue what's actually going to strike. So you've got to go searching. You look for that next spot of clear water that you can find. Those next big current breaks. What are you throwing? Obviously, you're going to be using search baits, especially early. Especially early. Spinner baits, crank baits, jerk baits. Something that allows you to cover a fairly large amount of water relatively fast, searching for bites. Now, once you get those bites, slow down. Because if you got bit by one, odds are there's more than one there. So you're throwing your spinner bait or your crankbait, and you're just dissecting your water. Pick it apart. Every piece of water you pull up into, pick it apart. Look at it. I'm going to go back into high school math. Break it down into segments like a chart or a pie chart. Take a percentage and say 3 casts in this section, 3 casts in that section, whatever number works best for you. It all comes down to your own personal experience and your comfort with the bait that you're throwing. You throw X number of casts. Pick a target in each sector. That rock, bang, 3, 1, 2, 3. Next spot, that tree, 1, 2, 3. Cover your water, but don't spend too much time. Like I said, big difference between tournament and fun fishing. In a tournament, you've got to cover that water. You've got to get out there. Fun fishing or pre-fishing for a tournament, the pressure's not there. Take the time and dissect an area a little more thoroughly. Instead of throwing 3 casts in every spot, throw 10. Or throw 5 with a spinner bait, then 5 with a crank. Find out what the fish in that area like. Find out what they relate to. Goes the same with your colors. Everybody seems to have their own rule of thumb when it comes to colors. Darker days, dark colors, dark days, dark colors, light days, light colors, whatever works for you. I find no matter what the day is, natural looking colors. Something that looks like it belongs in that body of water. And every body of water is different. Which comes back to matching the hatch, as they say. Knowing what your primary food source is in that body of water, lake or river, and matching it as good as possible. I know I've seen us on 2-day tournaments. When you empty out your live well after day 1, especially if you're on a crayfish body of water, there's always crayfish parts. Yeah, you're going to pick through some fish poop. Yeah. If it helps you learn, your hands wash. You got to clean out your live well anyways, so it's got to be done. But I have seen us look to see what color the crayfish parts are for that time of year in that body of water. Go back out on day 2, match those colors, and be even more successful than we were in day 1. I know 2 years ago, my partner and I were fishing the championship of the tour we fished that year. And lo and behold, we did exactly what I just described. Checked the live well after day 1. Looked at the colors. Changed up our baits just a little bit. Went back out day 2. And we were one of only 2 or 3 teams that actually had a bigger weight on day 2 than we had on day 1. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. But I'm not a big believer in coincidences. So, take it for what you want. I personally think that there's a little something to that. It's definitely a challenge for us this time of year in cold weather climates. We've been so anxious to get out. We've waited all winter. And I will say that here in New Brunswick this year, we have been blessed. This winter has not been that hard. And we should have an early ice out on virtually every body of water. And we shouldn't have any major delays to the start of our season this year. That being said, we still have to handle it the right way. Spring not only has its own challenges in the fishing side of things, it has its own challenges in dealing with your own personal health. I have spent more time this year doing off-season dry land training than I ever have. When I'm on the water for hours and hours and hours at a time, I don't want my body to fail on me. I don't want to be the guy that has to spend, at not even 40 years old, has to spend all day sitting down because my legs can't handle it. Well, in the spring, you also have other factors to consider. Temperature. When we hit the water in the early part of the season here in New Brunswick, our rivers and lakes in southern New Brunswick open on the 15th of April. Our rivers and brooks, not our lakes don't open until the 1st of May. I misspoke. But on the 15th of April, hypothermia is still a real possibility.